You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. It's Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. Ladies and gentlemen, there are only things that makes it official. Welcome to the big show. As always, for 16 years and over 2,100 episodes, we bring you the Chris Voss Show, and we bring you the smartest people, the brightest minds, the CEOs, the billionaires, the White House presidential advisors, the Pulitzer Prize winners, all those greatest minds that come to you, bring you their stories of their journeys, and as we always say on the show, stories of the owner's manual to life. So the great thing about the stories of what people bring is they let you know you're not alone. And a lot of times they have the blueprint to solve the problems you may have now or you may have in the future. I know a lot of podcasts I listen to, I'm like, I don't know if I need this now, but I may need it in the future. Anyway, guys, go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss one, the TikTokity, and Chris Voss Facebook.com. You can see us everywhere there. Today we have an amazing young lady on the show today. Her book came out November 9th, 2023. I think there was a reissue. It is called A Woman on Top, My Self Journey, let me recut that. Is it Monday? No, it's Tuesday. But the Alzheimer's is kicking in. It is called A Woman on Top, My Journey of Self-Discovery Through Love and Money. And we're joined today by Suzanne Leydecker, and we're going to be talking about her book and everything that went into it. It's Suzanne, right? Not Susan?
You got it.
All right, let me recut that for the audio. Suzanne Leydecker. There's too many screens, and I'm flipping between. Welcome to the show, Suzanne. How are you?
I'm doing great, Chris. How are you today?
I am excellent. I'm just evidently holding in there on the brain cells as it comes down. So you are a fierce love coach, author, speaker, and mother on a mission to build bulletproof women who keep their promises, learn to say no, and never take anything personally again. She's got a background in marriage and family counseling and a certificate in spiritual psychology. She blends education with a holistic approach to guide women on their journey of self-discovery. Splitting her time between Aspen, Colorado, and Orlando, Florida, she empowers women to prioritize self-care and embrace their unique gifts and take charge of their lives. Welcome to the show. How are you, Suzanne?
I'm doing wonderful today. I'm sitting in my home in Aspen, Colorado. It just snowed. The leaves haven't even fallen off the trees, and it's snowing. So I'm tucked in my office and here with you today. I love your introduction, your Chris Voss. It's brilliant, and I love the fact that you said in the first minute of this is that you're here to talk to people about how they're not alone. And for me, that's become critical in my life.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times we can get alienated and we can feel sometimes victimized or persecuted. We can kind of get in, sometimes that can kind of become its own subterfuge. But, a lot of times we feel like, it's us against the world and the universe. And the great thing about the human condition is a lot of us tend to experience the same things, or at least there's enough of us to spread it around. And I would like to avoid sharing the same things with people, but I guess that's not the way life works.
No, it's just not.
Yeah.
Hey, I just did a post that I'd like to share with you. It's just a little Instagram post that there's been several studies done that rank, I'm making this up, okay, just as a model, what causes longevity and happiness, and they rank them 1 to 50. All right, I hate to say it, but I'm not suggesting you do any of these things, but smoking, drinking, and eating are number 46, 47, and 48 out of 50. Number 1 is connection with other people.
Wow.
We as human beings are meant to be a connector. Number 2 is your connection with your family. Weirdly enough, it's first off society as a whole. So yes, you're never going to be, I tell people all the time, if you think you have a problem, I promise you, you are not alone. I said on the post, I was like, if you're going to eat, drink, and smoke, you might as well do it with other people. Or you can do something like join a book club. or
Yeah.
something that might enlighten your soul a little bit more, and make connections with people as often as you can.
You make a good point, because I'm a big purveyor of these meetup groups that we do for singles and stuff. And we're trying to get people to come out to events and, not sit at home doom
I'll come.
scrolling and going to their things. And so we have these big events that we throw for people. And it's just so interesting how isolated we become with our phones, with our staying at home. COVID kind of helped some of that, and then remote work force as well. And so a lot of people seem to have lost the skills to go out and socialize. And I've had people say, I'm afraid to go out and meet people. I'm like, you do that all day long. You're driving on the road, you go to the store, you go to the gas station, and all that good stuff. So let's get started. Let's get your .com so we can get the plug in there so people can look you up on the interwebs. Where can people find you?
At Suzanne Leydecker. I don't know if you post my name, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's at the bottom of the screen because nobody can sell it or say it. .com. And which my website is just being revamped, and it's amazing how much I've learned. It took me 11 years. By the way, it was published on 11/11. And
was it?
throughout my whole book is all this stuff, magic things about 11s. As a matter of fact, my license plate in my car is 11. My name is Suzanne Lynn Leydecker, so it says 11 SLL 11, because I figure angels might as well protect me while I'm driving down the road. And
we all need as much help as we can get out of the way.
Right. And there's I'm not alone. There's a whole bunch of other freaks on the planet that think 11s are related to angels. So that's been a journey. But
all the help we can get.
We need all the help we can get, for sure. And, connecting with your community, like I've been running, Chris, these mastermind dinners for women in the work. They don't have to be in the workplace. They can be mothers. They can be entrepreneurs. They can be thought leaders in Aspen, and also in Orlando, where I live, because I want to go to the Senior World Water Ski Championship as a competitor. So I have another tribe down there, and we run these groups, and it's been incredible, because I don't know about the communities where all your listeners are living, but, I know in Aspen, and I don't think we think it's unique up here, but that everything changed post-COVID, and our community kind of got ripped apart.
Oh, no.
And there was no longer as much. We have a very intimate community here where you could go out to dinner and see 10 people you knew. Now, nothing. So I've created these mastermind dinners, which I do host for free. And I have a theme for everyone. This theme coming up is it ever 100% anybody's fault? I think the answer is no. But a lot of women resort back to, it's all my fault. I did it all. No, we don't do that anymore. But the dinners have been great ways to connect. So I encourage all of you in your communities to start joining, because it gives you a safe space you don't have to, talk to somebody in a bar or invite them over to dinner and afraid that nobody will show up. If you have a kind of a reason for coming together, I can invite people to mastermind dinners all day long. Hey, come join the community of like-minded women.
Mm-hmm. And where can women find out, or people find out, everybody, I guess, find out about how to get involved with that community with you? Did they go to the
go to my website, and you can sign up we just did 10 ways to effectively say no. Because
10 ways to effectively say no. I need that.
My target audience is women, but I work with a lot of men. And how many men also say, I'll tell you what to do. If you want to try it, Chris, you could just take this on for a week. Okay. You can go back to all your bad habits or all your ineffective ways of saying no.
How did you know I have bad habits?
Because we all do. If it's not a hell yeah, it's a no. And I don't care. This is a very clear way. Now, that does not mean if it's a yeah, it's a hell no. If it means it's not a hell yeah, and it has to meet all the criteria. Okay, so that gives you a very clear way of reading, responding to a woman who thinks you're hot and you're like, don't really like her. How do you get out of that? To going out to events that you don't really want to go to. Now, the one area that I'm finding different is that just sitting on your couch and behind your phone and whatever, get your ass and go out to the party.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah, that's not, that is a community building thing. But other than that, if you don't want to do something, and this also means that, especially for women, that means that when, let's say a man asked me if he could borrow my car. I have a car in Orlando. I'm up in Aspen. It's a big, huge honking Escalade that I call the Beast. And he wanted to borrow the Beast to drive it to Charleston. Mm-hmm. And he wanted to pay me $600. I don't think $600 would roll the front two tires into the garage for its oil change or whatever. But he knew that the car was just sitting there. So I was like, I had just agreed like an hour before to say no if it wasn't a hell yeah. And frankly, Chris, it didn't feel like a hell yeah. Mm-hmm. But I didn't want to hurt his feelings, and I didn't want him not to like me. And I knew that, he knew that the car wasn't being used. So I had to do, I'd be very curious. I wish you had a hand raise on this show. How many people do this? I wrote 42 email or text messages back because I didn't want him to not like me if it really comes down to it. Mm-hmm. I didn't want him to not like me. So I was like, I'm so sorry, but I can't. So one of the things we just added onto my website was 10 tips on how to say no very succinctly in a sentence. No apologizing. No, I'm sorry. I can't do that because whatever. It's just, it's not a hell yeah, it's a no.
And you talk about that in your book, A Woman on Top, My Journey of Self-Discovery Through Love and Money. Tell us a little bit more about some of the things you do in there. It's kind of a memoir, right?
It's a memoir. And, I realized at age 52, this all happened because a man that I thought I was going to marry and realized he was a professional athlete and not in a sport that makes any money. So I was kind of supporting the whole thing. And, something happened, which I won't go into, but I was like, oh shit, I got to get out of here. And as he was, leaving for the last time, I shouted at him at the top of my lungs because I had just inherited some money like months before I met him at age 47. Mm-hmm. And I said, I am going to write a book called A Woman with Means. And you can't write a book about that. You know nothing about money. Oh, and I was like, oh, of course I do. It turns out that I did not, and he actually was correct. So I managed not to, which this is in my book. I actually wrote a pretty darn good book that people pick up and they don't put down. I managed to go all the way through college without taking an English course. I don't know any other human being that actually did that, but I did.
I flunked mine.
You did? All right. I'm pretty sure I flunked my high school one, so I wasn't really, I could do math until calculators came up, and now my brain's soft, very high level calculations. And, writing was no. It took me 11 years to write it because I was, again, afraid that people weren't going to like me if I told my truth. Mm-hmm. And this all, I said it in my book. I was like, the only people that can't really be mad at me are my parents because they're dead, at least not in this lifetime. Mm-hmm. But upon reflection, when I was 52 and I started this process, I published it when I was 63, I recognized that my whole life has been designed just to write a book like this. And I hold a master's and a certificate, which might as well be a master's. But, the stories that I got around love and money as a child, which we all did, I'm just curious. Would you be comfortable sharing like a couple messages that you got as a child around love, money, and who was in charge, who paid the bills? Did somebody get an allowance? Those kind of things?
Yeah, we got allowances, kids. They shared the checking account. My mom would, spend the money. I think my mom was the purchaser of stuff, so she, we'd go to the store with her. When messages, I did get, at the counter, mom would say, we don't have enough money for that, that sort of thing, because, she didn't want to buy this Cheerios that was filled with sugar that would bounce us off the walls. I can't blame her, really. But, a lot of parents default to that because they're just trying to, they're trying to get stuff done, the store and negotiate the paying and all that crap. And then, you got a bunch of kids yelling. It's tough being a parent. And so that was one of them. Some of the things that I think weren't really about money, but affected me was, eat everything on your plate. That affected my weight. Do I blame my parents for being overweight? No, I started eating a lot of shitty food when I was 22. But, and then sometimes our mom would say, if you're good at the store and you don't act out and do all the stuff that your brother does, then we'll get you a Coke and a candy bar. Or I think we get like a candy bar. I don't think we were allowed to drink Coke, but so we get like some sugary thing. And so all my life up until about 45, I would always, when I leave the store, I'd fill it with, Mountain Dew and all sorts of crap. And then I would get a pop and a candy bar to go home and probably a bag of chips and just destroy my health. Yeah. And, I had to learn to overcome that lie. Going to the store and buying shit, you don't need a reward.
Yeah. I have a couple interesting comments on several of those things. One, your mother saying no to the Cheerios because we can't afford it. Mm-hmm. Primarily what I see underlying that message is she just didn't feel like dealing with it and saying, Cheerios aren't good for you and I'm not buying them. So she just didn't want to say no either. Yeah. Second is that I think it's interesting that, so food obviously is another one that I also struggled with different ways. My dad I was the only kind of heavy one in the family. My mother, father, and brother were like beam poles. And, my dad used to make me stand up against the wall and to, for a straight posture and say, knockers up, girls. And at the time, knockers up, girls. He said it to all females. And I was like, and now I look back on it, I'm like, Dad, you probably shouldn't have been saying that. He thought it was really funny, in order to lift. And he is correct. I mean,
probably another time.
But
posture's important.
Yes, it is. And I have very good posture now.
I have a problem where I do that C-sitting and I don't pull my shoulders back.
Yes.
I need one of those postures.
Well, you can do that right now.
Your dad should have told me tits up more often. I got the man move.
But anyway, the reason why I think my book has been so successful is that, and you can buy it on Amazon under A Woman on Top and my name, which is right below the screen, I think, or it's somewhere, is that, it talks about all these messages that we get as children and how they're kind of ingrained. We know this, inner child, all that stuff. And it controls and decides like where we're at now or influences it. And so I think the first part of my book, which I thought was going to be the most boring part, was the part where people really engage because it makes them think about their childhood. And I wrote a very vulnerable book. Somebody said to me yesterday who had read it, and they're like, wow, that took some nerve. And it did. And I had to go back, actually, Chris, at certain points. So because of that boyfriend that was leaving my house, and I said, I'm going to write a book called A Woman with Means. There was some things in there that weren't as pretty, like the time that I took one of this poster that I had framed of him standing on a podium doing his sport. And I just took this thing and I smashed it into about 1,000 pieces, glass on the floor. Now, one, I had to clean up all of it. Two, I'm such a caretaker that I actually went out and got a new one for him. So I wrote about the things when I was not at my best, because again,
you saying like, you took ownership of those? You took accountability?
I did. I wrote them in a book.
Yeah.
I said, hey, listen, if you think you're alone, have you done these things? Because I did. So it lets people, I think it makes people feel more at ease around who they are. And, there's dark, scary things inside of all of our paths that we don't want to talk about. And they're okay. They don't need to come back out. We can just embrace them and move on.
Yeah, you can't change the past. That was one important thing I learned with Eckhart Tolle. I was having trouble after the loss of my dog. And then I think I had a couple hundred of her last photos that had gotten, and I was suffering from that. And I was really grieving. And then the hard drive failed that had the last couple hundred photos on her.
Oh, no.
And so I was like, you took my dog away from me, universe, and now you're taking the photos. And I have thousands of probably 10,000 photos of her, and some of them were recoverable because they gone into my Google Photos. But yeah, I mean, sometimes you can feel that way. So
Yeah.
now your journey is kind of unique. You talk about how you help women, and especially successful women. So I think you inherited, my understanding, some money from your parents when they passed away. And at age 47, you want to tell us a little bit like what that was about, and maybe how that changed your life and gave you some different perspectives on things.
My life growing up was relatively normal. We played kickball in the backyard. We went on a week-long vacation to Lake Tahoe. I grew up in California. And nothing was really out of the ordinary. I married a man and then divorced him, and we had our own challenges around money, which I'm sure every person that's ever been divorced, and we talked about this a little bit before, like, why would you get married? Because then sometimes you have money problems to get divorced.
Oh, yeah.
But all of a sudden, when I was 47 and I'm prepping to do a TED Talk, I don't have a stage yet, but the topic is how inheriting millions of dollars taught me about my self-worth.
Mm.
And it goes into how no matter how high your net worth goes, for all those people out there that think you won't have any problems if you have money, because you do, God is not selective, is that you will always default back to the level of your self-worth. So my level of self-worth was very low. I grew up in a relatively, not physically, my brother got beat a lot, but back then it was kind of okay.
Maybe he deserved it. I don't know. I'm just teasing.
Probably. Emotionally abusive, very unclear. If you're good, you get it. How dare you ever think that I would ever give you, you're a little girl. I got called little girl a lot, which so hurt my feelings. And so at 47, all of a sudden there was this life insurance policy. It was a second to die policy. It's the most confusing life insurance ever. Mm-hmm. And so I never really knew, I knew there was the money there. My dad lost all the rest of it. He had Alzheimer's. He created a huge multi-million-dollar business and then down the toilet because of his Alzheimer's. But anyway, he had this life insurance policy, but it was I could spend an hour talking to you about how complicated that was. So I never really knew whether it was going to come through. And weirdly enough, back in 2007, they sent me 2 checks because it was crazy, because one of them was supposed to be for children, generational skipping. That didn't work. And they got the first 2 checks. They sent them like regular mail with a stamp on them. They get lost in the mail.
Oh,
and I'm
God.
like, really? Didn't we have FedEx back then? I don't understand.
Wow.
And these were like millions of dollars worth of checks. Jeez. So I told this woman, Lavinia, I was like, you don't get me those checks. I come down to North Carolina and I sit on your desk until you get them. And so they eventually came, and I was like, it was like I'd won a lottery.
Wow.
Right? Now, as far as I know from all the research I've done, lottery winners usually lose all their money within 3 to 5 years. Mm-hmm. I have met the daughter of a lottery winner who thought it was all her fault because she prayed for her parents to win the lottery when she was 8, and they did. Destroyed the family.
Wow.
Divorced. She's still carrying this grief around, and she's 27 years of age because she thinks that she did this. And oftentimes lottery winners kill themselves. I'm not dead, but and you don't know who your friends are.
Yeah, you find out that when you get money.
So I experienced those things. I didn't know who my friends were. I did not, by the way, Chris, inherit. I'm not flying around in a private plane. I just had more than most of my broke friends. I live in a very wealthy community, but I somehow managed to pick everyone that was poor. Which is a very interesting thing. I was asked by the same boyfriend at one time, why are all your friends poor? Now, that was an eye-opening comment, and I was like, ooh, he's right. But it was very challenging for me, and I had a lot of shame and guilt. I was the lucky one. Yeah. And I didn't have, so I picked up bills. I paid for, everyone. I paid for boyfriends like crazy.
Yeah.
Only to break up with them and be a little bit poor. Ooh, I'd love some of that money back right now. Because I did what most lottery. I did not lose it all. I did a pretty good job because I have some financial skills, but it's only been in the last 4 years since at the end of trying to publish this book that I figured out that I'm okay just the way I am. And I don't have to live under shame and guilt. And I believe, Chris, that in this transition that we're going from in the 2000s, early 2000s, which is not surprising time-wise for me, that there's a lot more women that are bread earners, and they don't know how to handle it. And frankly, the men don't either.
Yeah. A few things on what you said there to recap. You talked about how when you get money, you learn who your friends are, you have to kind of reestablish a new value. And then you said something about how, externally people see something different, but internally it's hard to handle.
It is.
And I used to have so many of my employees come to me and people when we became successful. I grew up poor. And so once we became successful and got money with our companies, we bought all this stupid shit and big houses and everything and the cars and I thought that would fix everything that was wrong with me, everything that, I don't know, I was mentally going through, my childhood trauma and different things. I thought it would fix everything. I thought it would be a Band-Aid that would heal all wounds, basically. You get money, you buy everything you didn't have when you grew up as a kid, and then everything's fine. People love you. Turns out it doesn't. It can sometimes bring out the worst in you, and worst, it kind of insulates you, so it kind of amplifies all your worst traits or problems, or at least it does some people. And then you kind of start having people that like you because of money, but if you ever quit giving them money or sharing money or whatever, then they don't like you anymore. And
I've been through that several times. I have a question. Oh, shoot. Did you experience because I referred to people that all of a sudden went from toiling, and either they sold their company, they're sitting in the exact same shoes that I am.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you can now afford those fancy cars, fancy houses. Did you ever feel any guilt and shame over, thinking that you needed to take care of everyone?
Yeah. I tried doing that as a CEO of our companies. I tried throwing parties for people. I tried taking care of people. I didn't get too stupid at giving out my money. I'd been dating most of my life, and I've seen a lot of guys spend money on a spouse. I've had friends that have had millions and spent millions in divorce. And so that leads me into what I wanted to ask you about. So you've alluded that a lot of women now are earning a lot more money, and a lot of women sometimes are earning more money than a spouse or their prospective prospects. And it's a really big deal in the marketplace because right now what you have is, and I see this in our big dating groups that we have. I have thousands of people in our dating groups that we give coaching to. And one of the things that I see is a lot of women, normally women date in what's called a hypergamous nature. So they date usually up on the social scale. They date a man that's above them social-wise and money-wise.
Not me.
Yeah, you can't.
I might need to come to your workshops.
Yeah. It's actually it's a feature, not a bug. But what's happened is women hypergamously date that way. So the problem is once they reach a certain level of income in this world, it's really hard to find men above them that earn more. So an example is the internet right now cries out for men who are over 6 foot tall, earn over $100,000 a year. Those two factors and finding single available men to date, because there's a lot of married guys who make a lot of money, but they're married. Yeah. It's only 1% of the single men that are out there that are available, that are 6 foot tall plus and 100,000 plus. So if you're a woman who makes a lot more than $100,000, you got to find somebody who makes more than that, or you end up basically being in the game of a man, which is what you've been talking about, and I think what you help other women about. And that's what I'm trying to lead you into. And you become like my rich friends, men friends, where you end up taking care of the people underneath you because they don't earn more, they earn less, and it basically flips the role of the man to the woman, and the woman now has, one of my friends was a new skin gal, and she made, I think it was like $400,000 a month or something.
Holy shit.
And she always had to, date these, she would always buy and date these bodybuilder guys because she's, she told one of my friends, she's, I can't get a husband who makes more than me. They're just not out there really that are available single. And, most guys that are billionaires and super successful, they're married. So if I'm going to have to pay for a man to have a man in my life, just like a man would pay for a woman who earns less than him, then I'm just going to buy bodybuilders. But she would have all sorts of problems. They would extort money from her. They would try and write books about it. I mean, it was the same sort of thing that men go through in breakups that are ugly with women.
Listen, I did exactly that. In my book, I wrote about 3 specific men. I might as well, they were shaped differently and named differently, and 2 of them were ski racers, and then I left to go to the water ski world because I love water skiing. And I dated a water skier, and that each time it turned out, as I said before, I had less in my pocketbook, and I got, however, the last chapter, I think I'm going to answer your query here, is that, so no matter what, I mean, I either have to figure out how to date someone poor, or probably Prince Charming, who's 6 foot tall and makes over $100,000, is they're not around. And the biggest story that I hear from women is there's no men. And so the last chapter of my book, in the epilogue, it finishes, not to ruin it for you because you should all read it. I meet this woman years ago, right? And she was married. And she got divorced, and she was constantly looking for someone. She was on Match.com. She was on all the things. She lived in Denver. We were on the same board together. Back before COVID, we met in live person. So I saw her several times, same coffee shop with men, and she just couldn't find anyone to save her life. And so she went and she got a job. This is all during the course of years now, right? Wow. So I see her. This meeting was 2021, so it was 3 years ago, and I see her at this party for this organization that we both work for, and she pulls me aside and she's, Suzanne, I just need to talk to you. People often pull me aside because they know that I'm a safe space to share their most intimate selves, because I share my most intimate self. She says, I'm going to quit my job. And I'm like, why? She's like, I need to make more time to find somebody to marry. And I looked at her, and I mean, with all the empathy in my heart, and I said, what if he never comes along?
Yeah. Because
he might not. So my big thing is living into acceptance of wherever you are, rich, poor, white, black, male, female, homosexual or not. We all come, as you and I think have both pointed out, there is no way you can avoid the complications of being human.
Yeah.
Sickness doesn't choose whether you're rich or you're poor. Mm-hmm. It may help you to get your blonde hair blonde, but, above and beyond, I mean, it pays for all those food, water, shelter things. But can you identify the 3 most important things there are after food, water, and shelter, Chris? Go for it, off the cuff.
The Chris Voss Show Podcast, doom scrolling on TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, very important.
That's great.
I don't know. See, am I exposing what a shallow fucking person I am? Is that what I'm doing right now?
Some of the things are in the title of my book.
The Chris Voss Show Podcast?
Self-discovery through my journey of discovery through love and money. Love is high up on the list of things that we all want in whatever form that comes in. Mm-hmm. Which goes back to the community thing. So love can show up in a lot of different ways. Money, as far as I know, most people want money.
Yeah.
They just want money. They don't care how they get it. They don't have any, they'll go to shitty jobs and do that. No, please don't do that. Please get a hold of me and we'll figure out what you should be doing. And time. I'm so busy. I can't, whatever. So let's just leave time off the table. I write a book about love and money. Weirdly enough, so when you self-publish, I did on Amazon, you have to pick out 2 categories. You don't just publish under books. You have to publish under finance, self-help, whatever. You know, when I went to pick out 2 categories to be in, I was like, I had people to help me, right? But I was like, clearly one of them is love and money.
Yeah.
Do you know there is not another book? There is not a podcast talk, a TEDx. I don't know about podcast talk. There's not a TEDx talk. I am the only person on the planet that's talking about the intersection of love and money.
Well, that should be interesting.
Oh, now there's multiple people, hundreds of thousands of people talking about love. Same talking about money.
Has Spearmint Rhino ever done a TED Talk? I don't know.
Who?
Spearmint Rhino. It's a strip club that's international.
Oh, that would be really great.
I was doing a joke about the connection.
Okay, you know, I'm not. I have been to an occasional strip club, but not that one. You know, so yeah, I get a kick out of the fact that the 2 things that we think probably time comes in there. I asked this woman the other day. I was at a baby shower for my daughter, and Mia was there. Mia's about 34, and I said, "Oh, how are you doing?" She has a 3-year-old, and she's, "I'm getting divorced." And I don't know, Chris. Sometimes like my mouth does not have a filter. I'm like, does it have anything to do with money? And she looks at me and she says, "Oh, no." And then about 20 seconds later, she's, "Oh, yeah, it has everything to do with money." I mean, you go figure. I've been trying to figure out what percentage of divorces are caused by difficulties with money.
I think I've seen studies, and I have to try and figure out where I got them from.
I saw something that said 40%. In my mind, it's around 70%. Infidelity would be another one. Infidelity is usually caused, like the cheater is always the one that's the bad one. But frankly, between you and me and all your podcast listeners, it takes 2 to tango. So I was the one, my ex-husband left for another woman and moved to London. And
I love that saying, if you don't mind me rapping on that for a second. I love that saying, it takes 2 to tango. You and I probably come from a generation that we always said that when we'd hear about divorce or breakup, we'd be, it takes 2 to tango. Nowadays, people just go on TikTok and they just slam the other person instead of taking, and taking self-accountability. I talked a lot about this in the singles and dating pool, because one of the biggest problems we have in there is self-accountability. It's probably the number one problem, actually, in dating and singles. No one takes self-accountability. It's always the victimhood thing. It's always the other person that did everything. The other, when you hear them talk, you would think they were Jesus Christ. They were perfect in the relationship. And it does take 2 to tango. There are push and pulls of things, and there's the thread that slowly unravels sometimes. But we need to have more of that mentality. It takes 2 to tango. It's usually these things happen for a complex number of reasons, a combination. It's hard to boil them down, I think, to one. But I've never been divorced or married, so
I have a comment that maybe you can use in your dating events. So one, all the chapters in my book are all idioms. So it starts out with the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. You better figure out what apple tree you were and throw out the rotten apples that are no longer serving. And maybe you want to move to a peach grove. I don't know.
Hey, I like that.
Yeah, but I think I told you these before we got on your podcast. The 3 premises that I work on now that changed my life, because everyone's, do this and this is going to happen. How the heck do you do it? 1, take personal responsibility, which is your accountability.
Self-accountability.
And that means for women, don't take it all. It's all my fault. It's not all your fault. It just never is. You just said it in a different way. 2, say no. If it's not a hell yeah.
Yeah. And can we expand on that a little bit?
Yes, please. Can I give you my 3rd one before I forget?
Go ahead.
Don't take things personally. You know that you were talking about persecution and all that? That is just a very, very dramatic form of taking things personally.
Yeah.
Doesn't help the situation any. Anyway, go ahead.
And then we'll get to the 3rd one. So on the second one, I had something for it and I lost track. What was the second one?
The second one is say no if it's not a hell yeah.
Say no. Now, would you equate that to setting boundaries as well? Is that the same thing in
Yes.
in what you're?
So I remember going to Uganda one time, and I was invited to go there to run this mastermind program for women in the workplace. Somebody had financed it. And so I went over there. First off, in Uganda, they have 54 languages, and they don't have a word to mean mindfulness. So that was very difficult to begin with. But back then I talked about purpose and passion, which I still think is super important. Boundary setting and taking personal responsibility. The boundary part was so hard for me to communicate about how you do this. And really, honestly, until this was actually from a guy named Derek Silvers, and he actually, weirdly enough, did it on a Tim Ferriss podcast. I just met Tim Ferriss the other day. No idea how to get a hold of him, but if Tim Ferriss, if you're out there, I'm still looking for you. Anyway, so I lost my train of thought.
You were stalking Tim Ferriss. No,
I was stalking. No. So Derek Silvers said this thing. So this woman, I think I said this before. I agreed. I said, I'll do it for 1 week. I challenge any of you to do this for 1 week. Get a hold of me through my newsletter and let me know how it goes. Because all of a sudden, yes, it set boundaries. And it was such an easy way for me to discern when to say yes and when to say no. Sort of getting off my couch, putting on real clothes and going to an event because I was too shy or something.
Let me ask you this. I know women as mothers are the greatest nurturers and caretakers. I mean, without them, we just probably starve to death, I think, or at least my generation would have.
No. Don't think so. Go ahead, finish.
Yeah. I think one of the things that mothers do is they don't say no as often as they should. And sometimes they don't take care of themselves. They're a caretaker. And so sometimes they don't take care of themselves and they give first. Mom will eat last. She'll prepare dinner for everybody, take care of everybody, and then mom will take care of herself last. And I've heard from a lot of women we've had on the show that, they kind of do that as nurturing, but you can't give of yourself if you don't take care of yourself. And so setting boundaries, learning to say no, learning to, be okay with that. I think maybe do some mothers experience guilt that maybe I should have, I think I experienced some guilt with my dogs where I'm like, I should have spent more time with them today. I should have done this. And, but it's hard to say no.
No kidding. I mean, I was a single parent. My husband moved to London.
Oh, wow.
And I made up by giving my children everything. They did turn out to be pretty good. I'm happy to report. But no, I think that, obviously on the airplane, put on your own oxygen mask first. And I do not, in my opinion, think it is a good place for our way for women to show up as role models for their children. At home, anywhere. So if you have a strong mother, usually you have a strong sense of self. I'm not talking a bully mother. I'm talking one that sets boundary, is very clear about what she says, means what she says what she does, or does what she does, and all that kind of stuff. They seem to be, men that are raised that way also seem to attract powerful women that can also speak their mind. Can I tell you, do I have time to tell you one quick little story?
Sure.
Okay, so I tell, gentlemen ask me sometimes, I'm on the gondola and they're like, why did you write a book for women? And I was like, when you first had your girlfriend, you met this woman and, she was so empowered and you were liked her instantly. And then she kind of started liking you and she would go, oh, Chris, I don't know. What do you want to do tonight? And act, like she had no opinions, which a lot of us do. I just was reading a little meme about it. But you kind of were like, that's okay, honey. I kind of like to be liked like that. And she moves into your house and she picks up your underwear. She folds the towels. She goes to the grocery store. She does it for 6 months, a year, 2 years, as long as whatever. Some women, it's 15 years in the marriage. And all of a sudden she's like, Chris, I am so tired of picking up your underwear. I can't stand it. And I don't like going to the grocery store all the time. And you're like, whoa, babe, I didn't even know you were upset about it. Why didn't you just say, hey, Chris, pick up your underwear? And I would have been happy to do it, but you've been doing it, so whatever. And then she says, Chris, what's your favorite sport?
Oh, what is my favorite sport?
Well, just pick one.
I guess it's football, but I'm a
All
Raiders
right.
fan.
So you know what, Chris? I don't
right now.
always like to sit and watch football on Sundays. Sometimes I like to have a picnic in the park. And you're like, okay, dear. I mean, we can.
You told me when I met you love football.
That for sure. And then she's, and you're like, we have bikes and stuff. We can ride picnic in the park every time there's not a football game on or whatever you say. And she's, it doesn't count when I have to tell you what I want to do. You're supposed to ask me. Yeah, this is not working, Chris. This is not a good way to fly. As females, it's extremely, and men are, mostly they just laugh through the whole thing because if they haven't been through that experience, and I've been that woman, they know somebody who has, and they're laughing at them. So as women, I'm really here to support us in, not being like, oh, whatever you want to do. I mean, to a certain extent, you got to compromise, but say what you want, ladies. And husbands demand that, or boyfriends, all men demand that women say what they want. And by the way, tell them right up front, I hate when you open the car door, or this is the most dreamy thing you've ever done, because men are so confused these days. I kind of really feel sorry for them. They don't know what to do. So it doesn't help if you guys ask, would you like me to open up the car door? And then she'll probably cry and say, you know what, Chris, I can't believe you had to ask me that. It doesn't count if you have to ask me. That's not working either.
Yeah. I mean, you can't expect people to be mind readers, but that's a whole.
No, we expect people to be mind readers. We expect men to be mind readers.
But all women don't do that.
No, some of all the ones don't.
I think some of the ones that really need therapy.
Be careful. You're on the air.
Yeah. No, I'm completely fine with it. I study a lot of women and men's nature. No, not all women, I think, don't communicate their things, but there are some women that do it. And really, the approach of, someone should just read my fucking mind is literally insane. Knock it off.
Literally.
Yeah, it's go see a therapist and work out why you're doing that. That's basically my message. So as we round out the show, give us the final pitch out on people. How can they get involved with your services? How can they get to know and onboard with you better? Book consultant stuff. Tell us about some of the wares you do on your website. Services you offer so that people can know
recently, for the last year and a half, I've been trying to be a life coach and do speaking gigs and whatever. And I was spending so much money, frankly, and time getting this business off the ground based on a book is like a calling card. Mm-hmm. But I frankly just said no to most of it recently. And I've gone back to, really, I'm going to re-edit my book and do it on Audible. So all you people that cannot do it without Audible, which is me, it will be coming out by January. And, the best way at the moment to connect with me is through my website. And there's a little thing. It will give you the 10 top lead ways to say no effectively and succinctly. Maybe you should go on it, Chris, and then you can get the 10 top ways to say no. They're really good. Mm-hmm. And anybody knows how, anyways, I've done a whole bunch of blog posts, and I want to try to get in some literary magazines, HuffPo and some other stuff about how to say no and why, and, what kind of message would you get and how would you respond to it quickly so it doesn't take you a half an hour to write back no, because you don't want people to think you're a bad person.
Yeah.
And we're going to see, as my career develops and continues to grow, certainly if you're in Aspen, Colorado, let me know, or Orlando, Florida, because I would love to have you join my mastermind dinners. They're brilliant.
When do you have the next one coming up?
I have a big one coming up in Snowmass at the Collective, which is Snowmass is about 15 minutes away from Aspen, on December the 3rd. Very excited about that. And you know what? I think you just gave me an idea. I think what we're going to do is live stream them.
That's a good idea.
So people can be part of, if they're not in the area. It's You gave me that idea just now, because I catch a lot of live streams, and I love it, just to see what I'm up to. And if you have any brilliant suggestions and you're like, hey, we would love to have you come speak for us or whatever, completely 100% open. I'm just not chasing it down to convince people that I know what I'm talking about. I'm pretty good at what I do because I have a lot of life experience and a lot of education experience, but mostly this has come from the hard knocks of life.
Oh,
so
it always comes from the hard knocks of life. Why is that? Can it just be easier?
No, because it was easy to be all sitting in the prologue of my book. I'm like, what would we be doing? Sitting on our couch eating bonbons. I had to look up what a bonbon was, but life would be a bowl of cherries. I mean, what would we be doing?
Definitely.
This is called the game is called, this is the Earth School, and the game is called life.
Yeah.
It's how you play it, whatever your hand is.
I think there was something I said or something someone said once about how, well, actually, your cathartic moments, your troubles, your faults, the stuff that, the fact that you survive some of the stuff that we go through in life as human beings, it makes up who we are. And like I say on the show, the stories are our owner's manuals to life, our stories. We are a compilation of all of our stories. Without them, without the hard times, without the cathartic times, without the ways we learn to survive and overcome and get through stuff, we wouldn't be anything without those.
No.
I can even look at my childhood and some of the things I didn't like or some of the things that happened to me in life, and I can look and go, God, I really would have liked not to have gone through that experience, but the person it shaped me to be is so much better than I don't know what I would be without that experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, we can look at that, and that's why books like yours are important.
Yeah. And, for everyone to know, really, just to piggyback on that, is you're not alone. Like, whatever your trials, tribulations, whether you have money, whether you don't, as I said before, like, it's all okay. It's just about how we navigate. And that is true for me as well.
So give us your .coms as we go out. Tell us how people can onboard with you. I see on your website that they can book a conversation with you or reach out to you.
Yeah. And also, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn under my own name, Suzanne Leydecker. So you can definitely reach out to me there. I have a wonderful team of social media people that help me. Recently, I've just been going not on script. I just post something about who I really am and whatever struggle I'm going through or success I'm having. And it's being very well received. It would be great if you want to like me on any of those platforms and, keep in touch. This is why I do this, is because I love hearing about other people's stories. And I so appreciate you, Chris, for the open conversation that you're willing to have about what's gone on in some parts of your life that helped shape me to be a better person. And, we had a down deep, intimate conversation, I think. And, that's what I want to encourage people to go out and do with people that you love.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't, I tell people this, you can't solve a problem that you're having unless you take accountability for your 50% of the thing, 50-50. You can't solve it until you address it. It's like alcoholics that go to AA. The first thing you have to do is say, I have a problem.
Yeah.
And until you do that, you can't fix the problem. And there's so many people, I've seen people go through marriage after marriage and they do the same damn thing in each marriage that sabotages it. I've seen people go through 5 marriages that way. And they're doing the same thing every time. And they never take accountability, self-accountability. It's always the victimhood narrative. It's always the other person's fault. Nothing they do, they were Jesus Christ. They were perfect. They walked on water in the marriage, It's really important for people to do that, because until you address that, and that's kind of what therapy does and different things that we always recommend to people, professional therapy people, don't buy crystals.
Buy crystals too.
No. Yeah, if you like crystals, buy crystals. Go ahead. I'll I just always tell that joke on the show. It's an old callback. But yeah, you want to take and get professional help. I get so many people that are like, "Hey Chris, I'm going to, go do astrology." And I'm like, that's not going to fix the fact that you're a fucked up human being.
Hey, what I would leave you with is that we can, even the therapy part, and I have a master's in marriage and family counseling. But until you make a shift and do something differently, I work with clients and I'm like, I don't give two shits what you want to do differently. If you want to put your left shoe on before your right shoe, if you normally do it the other way around, something will shift in your life. You know, you can go address in therapy if you need to all your problems that you had with your mother when you were a child, or for me, my father and my mother, really. Or you can just make a choice to do something differently.
Definitely.
And for me, over a course of 4 years, it changed my life. I was an unhappy, miserable human being. Not entirely, but I cried a lot and I got upset. I was very, very emotional. And now I'm so much more balanced and happy. And even my three now grown children, you know, have all commented numerous times, like, you're just different. Mm-hmm. So I treat them differently. I just show up differently. I used to cry all the time. I probably would have cried on this podcast. Not that you shouldn't cry, but, you know, that victim mentality crying is not very attractive, honestly. Don't do that anymore.
Yeah. I mean, and you can't fix your problems if you're, you know, some people celebrate their victimhood for attention.
No, I know.
And so they just, I liken it to a pig who wallows in its mud pit. You know how pigs do? And I grew up near a farm. What can I say? Right now, the Gen Zers are going, what's a farm? And basically, you can Google it, kids. And you'll tell them, you'll be like, come out of the mud pit. You're in your mud pit that you made. You know, I heard Tori Amos at a concert one time say, you know, she was in this victimhood mentality stage for a while, and her friends just started saying to her, get off the cross, man. We need the wood. And a lot of people do that. I mean, I might have been guilty of doing that sometimes in my life, where
I'm sure we all have. But you know what, my thing is that start small. Mm-hmm. If you can't get out of the mud pit, just go to the next door neighbor's mud pit, and maybe there's a little more water and a little less dirt.
A little less dirt.
So you can have experiences. I'm all about creating things that get you to pat you on the back. And then it makes you want to go out and you want to celebrate the small wins. Mm-hmm. You can have instant change. Mm-hmm. Read Joe Dispenza, you know, rewiring the brain. But it's challenging to do. And I think that if you can have small wins, like, I'm going to put my shoes on backwards every day for a week and see what happens. You'd be surprised.
You will be surprised, actually.
Something's going to happen. I think I'm going to do that this week. I'm going to take that challenge on myself.
You're going to turn them the other way around?
No, I'm just going to put, you know, you probably put the
left
right
on the right and the right on the left.
No, you probably put the right shoe on first every morning. Like, you put which leg do you put through to your pant when you get into your pants?
I'm not even sure. Like, I don't.
Come on, you do it every morning.
I don't pay attention. I'll have to, next time I put my pants on, I'll definitely be like.
Well, I'm sure you do it the same way every time.
Probably. That's most likely true.
Or do you know what hand you brush your teeth with? That's a little bit.
I'm right-handed, so it's my right
So
hand.
try brushing your teeth with your left hand for a week. God. You want to do that together with me?
Yeah, that'll. I don't know.
1 week?
I don't even know if I have strength in my. Actually, my left arm is stronger.
You'll be fine. Get an electric toothbrush. How do I get a hold of you to see how you're?
You have my email.
You're
booked on the show.
All right, that'll go to you. So I want to see. Can we talk in a week?
Sure.
Can we agree? Can we agree to brush our teeth with our left hands?
I'll try.
No, there's no trying, Chris. Just do it. Little thing.
You're like Yoda. There is no.
Do you want something? Do you need to pick something easier?
Hey, I don't know. Let's see let's figure out what the pants thing is and putting the pants on. That might be easier than brushing my teeth.
Okay, that's fine.
I don't know.
Okay.
All right. So let's round out the show as we go out. Give people your .coms. Where can people find you on the inside?
Suzanne Leydecker. So it's SUZANNE LEY is in yarn, D is in dog, ECKER.com. And then you can find me under my name on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook.
Thank you very much, Suzanne, for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Loved it. Really just loved it.
Mm-hmm. And thanks, Rhinus, for tuning in. Order up her book wherever fine books are sold. A Woman on Top, My Journey of Self-Discovery Through Love and Money, out November 9th, 2023.
11.
I'm sorry, what?
11/11.
Oh, 11/11. Okay. I'm just reading the hardcover.
I don't know how that got in there.
Amazon.
I'm going to have to get that corrected.
Let me see what the paperback says. The paperback says 9, and the Kindle says Kindle doesn't give a date because it's kind of the way it is. It does show that the publisher published it on November 11th.
Yeah.
But for some reason,
That's
Amazon
weird.
says the 9th. And one of the reasons we always quote the date that Amazon says is because people watch our videos 5 to 10 years from now. And anytime I say there's something new coming out or some crap, they'll be like, it's not new. It's like the video's 5 to 10 years old.
And by the way, that is not the second rewrite. That is the first book, but I am going to do somewhat of a rewrite on it because I like to try to tell people don't use need. You don't need to do anything. I should. I want to, which now I'm having a problem with one because it means that there's some kind of lack. I'm choosing to is a much clearer message to the universe. Buy those crystals.
Yeah.
I got crystals everywhere. I don't know where they are right now.
Do you?
I also got a duck, just in case. If I ever need to talk to myself, I talk to my duck.
That's why I have 2 dogs.
He's plastic.
So
2 dogs.
Yeah, I have 2 personalities, or maybe 6. I'm not sure which. But then they can talk to each other. I can have a dog to talk to for whatever. So yeah.
We could do a whole nother podcast on the voices.
In our heads. Thank you very much, Suzanne, for coming to the show. We really appreciate it. Thanks to our audience for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1 on the TikTokity, and Chris Voss Facebook.com. You'll see all the Facebook groups we have over there for the show. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you next time.